all of my talks are trying to answer one question. And it's a really simple question. It's how does creativity happen? What are the different ways that creativity might happen? And the interesting thing is humans are so complex and creativity is so complex that it happens in many, many different ways. One way that it doesn't happen is by preparing the world for your child, right? You have to prepare the child for the world and create resilient students, resilient minds. So that's why I have this quote up here as kind of a preface. Cross-sector innovation is basically looks for ideas in different places in other sectors. So I've done some work with concepts on futures thinking, and this is actually a slightly different topic. Let's start by asking this question. Who doesn't want their child to be exceptional, right? We all want our kids to be great. We want our kids to be amazing. We want our kids to be smart. We want them to be successful. Who wouldn't want that, right? I want my child, certainly, to be successful. That's why we sent her to Concept. But the question becomes, as a parent, as a teacher, like, what do you do? How do you create exceptional kids? And a very common answer that you hear is practice. Practice, 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 right? Practice makes perfect. We give our students, we give our young children a lot of opportunity to practice something until they get very, very good at it. They have a head start. They're very successful at a young age. And you might ask yourself, how much practice does the child need? And scientists actually, they have an answer for that, 10,000 hours. 15 years ago, Malcolm Gladwell put out a book called Outliers. He's a brilliant American journalist and intellectual thinker, and he popularized the idea of 10,000 hours. So the basic idea, there are 365 days a year. Ariel, if you want to be an expert in Portuguese, that's about 3 hours a day for 3 years. You have 10,000 hours. It turns out that the truth about how you create exceptional children is a bit more complex. This sort of head start, we try to deepen just one practice for our kids, but generalists actually have a lot of advantages in the world, and that is a useful thing that we want to try and approach to. The specialist focuses on repetition, and they practice to become an expert in a domain. The generalist dabbles in many different areas, and they learn skills that might seem disconnected. While that knowledge might not run deep, they can adapt quickly in changing situations. What type of world do we live in, right? Do we live in a world where we need to be an expert in one domain, or do we live in a world where we need to adapt and conform to new surroundings and make decisions as situations change? I got a lot of this information from a great book, which is also published in Portuguese. It's called Range. I have it here. And I won't read this long quote. It's a bit long. The basic point of the book is that there are a lot more Roger Federers. There are a lot more successful people who take the track of being a generalist than there are people like Tiger Woods in this world. And so we want to be creating the conditions for our students to have diverse experiences, sometimes experiences that feel disconnected, if we want them to be adaptive, creative problem solvers. Okay, just a couple of other ideas here. Like, there's a distinction between something called a kind domain, which you can think of like chess, and a kind domain is something where patterns repeat over and over again. AI is really good at kind domains, especially previous AI. The interesting thing about ChatGPT, generalized intelligence, is that it becomes more useful in different types of domains. When things recur repeatedly, kind domains are really good. Wicked domains are more similar to what we actually have in the world. And in a wicked domain, a context can change, things can shift. Inferences that you made yesterday might not apply today. And so you have to have a more generalized skill set. Like if in an emergency room when different situations are happening every day. Basically, specialization is often rewarded. Oh, this slide didn't come through. But the world is wicked. And so if the world is going to be wicked, we need to create students that can thrive in a wicked world. We need to encourage our students and our teachers to think across contexts and to think across domains. And let's be honest, schools aren't designed for this, right? This is why we're at a learning design conference. Schools traditionally are designed to teach specialization, expertise in a single classroom, taught by a single teacher who understands that specialization and expertise. And that's something that we need to be creative about and rethink in our structures and in our teaching if we want to give our kids the tools to be creative problem solvers. And we also have to trust and know that some of the things that we teach them, even though it might not be obviously useful at first, it will be useful later on, because we're building different types of experiences, examples, and conceptual understandings that build their knowledge of the world. I just have a few more slides here to share before I close out. One idea, this comes from a program we did at the D.school called School Retool, is to do cross-bended classes. So to go to the math teacher and the history teacher and say, can you teach a project together? Can we separate the walls of our classroom and have you work as co-teachers? And then by necessity, you're thinking about the intersections of things and transferring them from context to context. Another image that I want to leave you with, we talked about this a lot at the university, though I don't know where it came from originally. This came from Barcelona, but it was just the only image that I could find. This is the idea of a T-shaped student. And so a T-shaped student has a depth in one area, but then a lot of experiences as symbolized by their arms. They have breadth. So to teach them a concentration, but also to give them a dabble, a sample of many other fields and experiences to enrich their learning and understanding. The last thing I'll say is that this diversity does not also have to exist in the mind of the individual. It can also be in the collective of a team. And there's a lot of research that's come out around how diverse teams that have unique specializations, unique experiences, unique abilities are much more productive and much more creative in their work. So you can also do this by hiring people who are different from you and working with people who are different from you.